All right, Bassmaster 2025 message to Mr. Randy Blocket. You know, before the Classic started, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and I told him exactly what Randy Blocket was going to say about the Bassmaster Classic. I said this like on Tuesday. Seeing how things are going to set up, what the weather was going to be, all the wind, all the stuff that they were talking about. And sure enough, Randy Blocket comes out with his videos yesterday and today, and my phone's blown up, messages, want to know my take and my opinion on the Bassmaster Classic. I'm going to start by giving my take on Randy Blocket's absurdity, that this was the lowest ever attended Bassmaster Classic. That's not true. And that this was a disappointing Bassmaster Classic. For who, exactly? Was it disappointing for Randy because of Livescope? Look, I'm not going to get into the whole Livescope debate, okay, forward-facing Sonar debate, because the fact of the matter is, you play to win the game, right? Every single Bassmaster angler competing in the Bassmaster Classic, to my knowledge, had forward-facing Sonar Livescope on their boat for the Bassmaster Classic. Why? Because you play to win the game. And even Lee Livesey, who didn't use it most of the Classic, he still had it on the boat, Randy. Because in order to compete in today's fishing events at the highest level, everybody knows that you gotta have Livescope for when you need Livescope. Because you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe a year ago, if bass had been just the oracle of bass fishing, could predict the weather, the wind, and the fact that the bass, because of the cold, Texas had snow this year, guys. Lots of Texas had snow for long periods of time, okay? That the bass weren't going to be shallow and weren't going to be spawning in March, okay? Which is what people like Randy clamored for years ago, were these spring Bassmaster Classics. Remember that? Bassmaster Classics used to be in the fall. And then they had one on Ray Roberts in June, if you guys remember. And I believe that was won by Hank Cherry with 50.15 pounds, if I remember correctly, Randy. How is it that in 2025, Bassmaster goes back to Ray Roberts, and I think they were there in 21, they go back to Ray Roberts and catch over 70 pounds, 70, 75 pounds, and it's disappointing. 20 to 25 more pounds of fish caught, and Randy Blocket thinks the Bassmaster Classic was disappointing. And his comments about attendance, well, that has nothing to do with Livescope. Like, he's not real intuitive, okay? Again, how many people have attended NPFL events, Randy? No Livescope. No Livescope. No forward-facing Sonar. How many people have attended an NPFL grant? And why aren't you out promoting the NPFL if you believe that all of the tournament trails should go to no Livescope? We have a tournament trail with no Livescope or forward-facing Sonar, and you don't even promote it. You don't even promote it. Right? Like, where are the guys on your channel from the NPFL? Right? Like, I don't understand what's going on there. Like, you got what you wanted. One of the three organizations listen to your subscriber base and is going to try and make a go of it without forward-facing Sonar. And what's going to happen is, unfortunately, Randy, for you, is they're going to catch less fish compared to MLF and bass this year. But there won't be any forward-facing Sonar, and there's going to be, at the end of the year, people are going to have to make up their minds. Do they want to see a lot of fish caught, or they want to see smaller bags with more traditional non-Livescope techniques? And we'll see what happens. But again, the Bassmaster Classic wasn't disappointing, okay, for the anglers. Like, the top 10 guys, top 10 all caught fish, okay? The attendance, why was the attendance down, Randy? The attendance was down because since 2017, when Anderson Media bought Bass, they keep going back to the same places for the Classic. Okay? They've been to Hartwell twice. right? They've been to Ray Roberts now twice. They're going back to the Tennessee River for a third time next year from 2017 when they bought it. They've been to Guntersville once, okay? And they've been to where? Oklahoma, right? So within the last 5 years, they've been to Oklahoma and Texas twice, okay? Well, if you live in Texas, right? If you've been to the Classic, you've been to the Classic, you can watch it all on TV. You don't need to go to the Classic. Okay? I experienced this in the late 80s and 90s, Randy. When the Bassmaster Classic was on the James River in Richmond, Virginia. We had it in 88, 89, and 90. By the time you got to 90, it was less attendance. Because the locals and everyone around there had already gone 2 years straight. And you already pulled everybody within the multi-state radius to come in already in 88 and 89 that showed out. And then in 90, it was still really good, but there wasn't as much. Okay? So the people have already been that were at Ray Roberts just a few short years ago in the economy. If they can watch it all on TV, did they need to go back and get a hotel? Did they need to pay for the parking at the convention center? Did they need to go to the expo again? It had nothing to do with forward-facing sonar. In fact, on the contrary, it seems everybody who's anti-forward-facing sonar was watching. Look at the comment feeds. Look at your own comment feeds. They were still watching. Okay? So as far as Bass is concerned, it's a win-win for them. Because if the forward-facing sonar people that, are going to watch, and the people who are anti-forward-facing sonar are going to watch, regardless, then what are we really talking about, right? What are we really talking about? And then people like you, Randy, who are pushing, which is commendable on the conservation aspect, for no Livescope and forward-facing sonar, you're not even supporting the NPFL. I mean, are you for real? Is it all just a sham? Is it all smoke and mirrors? Is this just a way to have subscribers and get clicks? Is to be the anti-bass? Because you certainly don't say the same things about MLF. And that could be because you still fish in MLF, right, Randy? And you wouldn't want to have those credentials pulled from you where they tell you that, well, you know what? Because of your YouTube channel, you can't fish the BFLs anymore. You don't want that to happen. So you're not really critical about MLF the same way you're critical about Bassmaster, where you're not fishing any opens, obviously. You're not going to go to the Elite Series, okay, ever, right? Again, and fish at that level again in bass. So bass is just an easy target for you. But it would be nice if you actually came with the creds and had the receipts, okay? Because the reality is you have no way of knowing why so many anglers and families and Americans didn't come to Ray Roberts. You just assume it's forward-facing sonar. Yet, they're selling forward-facing sonar like crazy. Can't keep it on the shelves. Crazy. Okay? Throughout this whole period of everybody being so anti-Livescope. Look, I'm not a big scoper guy. Okay? But I actually told my buddy freaking yesterday, I'm buying it now. Because everybody has it. Okay? Everybody has it now. Guys down at the local lake have it. Guys on the Potomac River have it. Okay? Guys all throughout the region have it. Kayakers now have it. 1 and 2 grabs on their boats. Okay? And so that's just the reality of you play to win the game. Okay? And while I agree with the conservation stuff, that's about as far as it goes now with the forward-facing sonar. I've got my own opinion about the Bassmaster Classic, some of the things that went down, but this notion that it's the lowest attended Bassmaster Classic in the history of Bassmaster Classic, absolutely false. If you ever went to the Classic in the 70s and 80s, you know that's absolutely false. Okay? And then the most disappointing Classic ever. Again, maybe disappointed for Randy, but not disappointing for the people who the Bassmaster Classic is for ultimately, which is the anglers. Okay? The fans, we're just along for the ride. Okay? It is to reward the anglers for their previous year. Okay? Let's not lose sight of that fact. Who was it disappointing for? Because, like I said, 20 to 25 more pounds of fish were caught to win this thing than on Ray Roberts just a few years ago on the same lake. So wouldn't 2021 be more disappointing than 2025, Randy? I mean, if you caught 25 pounds less fish on a lake that you had just fished a few years prior, would you be disappointed? Right? Yeah. But if you caught 25 pounds more than you caught the previous time you fished that lake, like Lake of the Ozarks maybe, I don't know. How would you feel about it? I doubt you'd be very, very disappointed, Randy. And that's just my message to Randy Blocket, is when you keep it real, people are going to really listen. But when you make up just crappy bullshit and you try to force your round narrative into a square, you know, it just doesn't work, okay? There were plenty of things wrong with the Classic. There are plenty of things I hope MLF has watched for Redcrest coming up, especially from the live cast, the broadcast, and things like that, that basically I hope MLF sees and realizes, hey, they got a little bit of time that they can tweak their broadcast to make sure that they run into the same problems. People want to see people fish. That's it. But you notice Bass went the other way, Randy, because of you and people like you. Because everyone's tired of looking at people look at their screens. Well, if half the field is, if the guys that they have cameras in their boats are looking at screens, what did they do? They went to the studio. They went to the broadcasters. They went to them, away from the guys looking at screens, because you told everybody nobody wants to see the guys looking at the screens. And then come Sunday night, everybody in your feed is complaining about there not being enough fishing on the broadcast. Go figure.